Welcome back to Matt Presents, where I recommend movies and we talk about them. Previously, we did a science fiction triple feature, starting with the beloved Flash Gordon, 1980. This is, of course, based on the old school Flash Gordon serials of the 20s and 30s. I thought there was a movie from that era, I mean, the serials have been edited together into a movie, but it's like 3 hours long, right? Because it's a bunch of 10-20 minute serials all strung together. So this is really the only Flash Gordon movie there is, at least hour and a half long Flash Gordon movie there is. Cult classic. Clearly made to cash in on Star Wars a little bit. Star Wars was heavily inspired by old sci-fi serials like Flash Gordon, so they brought Flash Gordon back to cash in on Star Wars. It's what I call the Alan Quarterman effect. Because, Indiana Jones was based on Alan Quarterman, and then after Indiana Jones got big, they brought back Alan Quarterman to cash in on Indiana Jones. So that's the Alan Quarterman effect, when a popular thing is inspired by an old thing, and they bring the old thing back to cash in on the thing it inspired. There's a couple examples of this. I would argue Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters cartoon is maybe an example of that, because you had the popular Ghostbusters movie, and then Funimation is like, hey, we own this, the name Ghostbusters, so we're gonna bring the Ghostbusters back to cash in on Ghostbusters. And then, of course, there's the 1997 Kimba the White Lion movie that pretty clearly cashes in on Lion King, which was at least in part inspired by Kimba the White Lion. Lots of debate about whether or not it's a ripoff, and I think pretty decisively it is not. It is not a Kimba ripoff, but it's pretty obvious to me that it was inspired by Kimba, so I think the real controversy is that Disney continues to deny that it was inspired by Kimba, when people who worked on it were like, yeah, this was inspired by Kempa. Anyways, I'm off topic. We were talking about Flash Gordon. So there's an asteroid headed for Earth, or something. Something's headed for Earth, and only Dr. Hans Zarkov knows about it. And he's built a rocket to, escape and stop the impending asteroid that's going to destroy the planet. And as it happens, Flash Gordon and the people in the airplane with him, his airplane somehow ends up in Zarkov's lab, and so Zarkov takes Flash Gordon with him to space, and they end up in the clutches of Ming the Merciless, who's this space dictator who's ruling over this planet of people, and there's these Valkyrie type people, and then there's also these normal human dudes led by Timothy Dalton, right? Fuck, which Bond was it? Yes, Timothy Dalton. I got it right. And so it's kind of Flash's adventures on this planet, trying to restore everything, trying to help the people there, and eventually, of course, they do overthrow Ming the Merciless. This movie is very heavily 40s inspired. It's kind of a nostalgic movie, I suppose, but I would argue it's almost too much of a nostalgia thing. Like, they go too far to making it like a 40s movie, because this is exactly what you would see in the 40s. There's no twist. There's no reason it had to be made in the 80s. it could have just been made in the 40s. And I actually think an apt comparison here is Star Wars. Star Wars was influenced by all these old space operas, but there was a twist. Star Wars was different. Star Wars was more mature, A, and B had far better special effects than any of, like, the old stuff. So it's like, yeah, Star Wars is a 70s movie inspired by movies from, like, the 30s and 40s. This just looks like a 40s movie. There's no reason it had to be made in the 80s. That's probably my biggest complaint with it. And even that, like, I enjoy the aesthetic. I enjoy that they went that far with the aesthetic. I just think there's not really that much to differentiate it from, like, the thing it is aping. Well, okay, I take that back. There's one thing that makes it an 80s movie, and that's that the soundtrack is by Queen. So, points there. Points for having a soundtrack by Queen. Now, some people are going to tell you this movie is cheesy as hell, and some people are even possibly going to tell you that it's a bad movie, or even like a so bad it's good movie. Those people are wrong. Those people are stupid. Like if you want to say you don't enjoy it, fine. I'm not saying you're wrong for not enjoying it. But if you think this is just like a cheesy as all hell film, and it's like, oh, it's so bad because of how cheesy it is, it's like, you have missed the point, man. You have totally missed the point. This is very deliberately cheesy as all fuck. It's deliberate. It's on purpose. It's kind of a joke, I think. I think it's a joke, honestly. I think it's a bit of humor. It's a bit of like, haha, remember when movies were like this? And it's a ton of fun. It's doing it for fun, man. Say you don't enjoy it. Say you think the bit doesn't work. But if your only criticism of this movie is that it's cheesy, it's like, you don't get it. You don't get Flash Gordon. You're just wrong. You're just wrong. Timothy Dalton, of course, is the human leader? I guess they're humans. I don't know how these species are divided up. They probably have very specific names that I'm just not remembering right now. I can identify them visually. I'm like, okay, these are the Valkyrie people, and these are the Timothy Dalton people, and there's like another one in there. But their leader gets killed pretty early, and then the other people from his, like, kingdom just don't show back up again. So you get Timothy Dalton, famous for playing James Bond, and Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless, who... This is another problem I have with how 40s it goes, because Ming the Merciless is clearly based on some, like, yellow scare era villains. He's a little yellow facey. To be fair, he is not... like, there's enough separation that it's not just a guy doing an Asian impersonation. He is not Fu Manchu, you know? Although Max von Sydow is shooting for Christopher Lee, and he is nailing Christopher Lee. Like, no one should be able to pull off Christopher Lee but Christopher Lee. But you know what? Max von Sydow's like, nope, I'm Christopher Lee now, and yeah, he's good at it. Yeah, the villain is problematic, I guess. We'll say problematic. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's a racist villain the way I would with, like, old school Flash Gordon villains, right? Like, way back in the day, Flash Gordon had some, like, actually racist villains, and this is just sort of like a homage to those racist villains. I guess that is a nested problem with my this is too much like a 40s film thing, is that the villain is just a little racist, honestly. But it's still a good movie. It's still a good movie. Flash Gordon is played by Sam J. Jones, who kind of had trouble getting work after this. At least that is what I'm given to understand. There's a whole, like, documentary on here called Life After Flash about, like, these people trying to get work after being in Flash Gordon. This was also sort of the career highlight for director Mike Hodges, who he directed some Queen music videos, probably because he met them through Flash Gordon. He did uncredited work on The Omen 2. He's probably best known, other than this, for his film Get Carter and Black Rainbow. Although he also directed the absolutely brilliant Jerry Lewis comedy Morons from Outer Space. Actually, Dear Beloved Spaceballs, I think, was at one point called, like, Morons from Space or something, and then because of that movie, they had to change it to Spaceballs, which might be a better title, I think. Got this, like, ultra nice Arrow Video occasionally, like, they already do really good releases, but occasionally they'll do, like, the extra good release for, like, classic cult films. You know, they got one, I have one for RoboCop, and I have one for Tremors, besides the Flash Gordon one that I have. It's got this booklet, it's got a nice little box that it goes in. It came with a poster, too. The poster's hanging right over there. Although the Flash Gordon poster is kind of behind the lamp where RoboCop and Tremors are sort of out in the open. I'm pointing all around my apartment as if you can see where I'm pointing. Although, I have videos where both of those posters are visible, so, like, if you have some idea of the layout of my apartment, you should know where those posters are. At least this room of my apartment. There's more to my apartment, but I don't really film in there. And as much as I love these nicer editions, I hate how much shelf space they take up. This is like a disc and a half, and I'm already, like, short on shelf space, so it's like, come on, man. Come on. You're gonna take up that much of my shelf space? Christ. Flash Gordon. It's hilarious, it's amazing, I love it. I'm very sleepy right now. I slipped on some ice and, like, busted up my ribs, and now I can't sleep on my stomach, so I haven't been sleeping very well. So if I seem lethargic, that's why I didn't get a lot of sleep. After that, we watched The Day the Earth Stood Still. I do not have a disc for this, I just borrowed a library DVD. A classic 50s sci-fi film about the alien Klaatu coming to Earth to warn us about we've discovered nuclear technology and we're working on space travel. It's a very 1950s movie. It's a very, like, early parts of the 20th century movie, because it's like, oh, you've just discovered nuclear power and you're discovering space travel, so hey, the aliens are here to warn you, like, be careful with that shit. I enjoyed it. It's got this real chill, like, hippie vibe the whole time, like, you puny humans and your petty wars, like, could you just stop? Could you just chill out? But, I do think it kinda contradicts itself with its ending. It's basically like, oh yeah, peace and love and all that, and then the ending is just like, hey, if you don't do the peace and love shit, we're gonna send our giant robots to fucking kill you. And it's like, okay, wow, that was a harsh turn right in the final scene of this movie. The universe must learn of our peaceful ways by force. I kind of hate the ending. It feels contradictory to the rest of the film. It's just like, if you guys aren't peaceful, we're gonna come kill you. So be nice, or we'll kill you. But otherwise, it's a pretty nice movie. I enjoyed it. I like Klaatu a lot as a character. Who is that? Michael Rainey, as Klaatu. It's a good performance, and I like the character. Just this like man from outer space who drops in to observe humans and is just like, wow, humans are weird. Humans don't make any sense. And I'm like, I feel it, man. I feel it. Yeah, real outsider connecting with the Alien movie. Like, but like, I don't know. I'm with them. I'm like, no, you're right. None of this shit makes sense. Uh, why are we like this? Why is humanity like this? I'm on Klaatu's side here. He gets it. I believe this is the second film following Flying Ryan to hit absolutely none of my by the numbers. Because there's no dead bodies, no one dies, no one drinks, no one does any drugs, no one swears. It's the 50s, they weren't allowed to do that. No one even breaks a window. There's not a single broken window in this movie. The closest I could maybe do is to count the fact that Klaatu doesn't use Mr. Like, someone calls him Mr. Klaatu, and he's like, nah, just Klaatu. And I'm like, yes. This alien from an advanced society where they don't have gendered... What's that called? The thing that goes before your name. Titles? I don't think title is right. Honorific. Gendered honorifics. Klaatu comes from a race with no gendered honorifics. That is the word I was looking for. So maybe I could count that as gay shit, but I didn't. That's just alien shit, man. But it was a good movie in spite of that. I really enjoyed this one. I don't need these wild, crazy things to happen in my movies. I just enjoy when they do. Like, you gotta try a lot harder to make an interesting movie without checking any of those boxes. And, you know what? Day the Earth Stood Still achieves that. It's kind of odd to me that this was promoted as, like, a horror movie. Like, ooh, creepy alien thing. The poster's even, like, the robot, like, destroying the Earth. And, no, this is not a horror film. This is pretty basic sci-fi. Nothing scary about it at all. Klaatu is here on a mission of peace. I mean, it's a deadly mission of peace. Peace or we'll fucking kill you, but it's a mission of peace. And he doesn't kill anyone, just for the record. No one gets killed. Some people get knocked out by the robot, but that's sort of, that's just so Klaatu can sneak past them. Anyway, Day the Earth Stood Still. I really enjoyed it. It was a good movie. Glad I finally got to see this one. And we ended with the Universal classic, The Invisible Man, which, I believe Queen has also written a song for this movie. Granted, they wrote it about the movie decades after the movie had come out. It's not in the movie the way Queen's music in Flash Gordon was. So this is the story of a scientist who has discovered a secret formula that can turn you invisible, but he doesn't have a way to turn himself back visible, so he sort of runs off, gets a hotel room, and is trying to, like, develop the antidote to his invisibility serum. But, of course, he causes a mess, at least partially because there's a suggestion that his invisibility potion also makes him a little crazy. He's starting to, his mental state is deteriorating because of the invisibility serum, and he takes to crime and criminality. So, antics ensue. He's being chased by, like, the police and stuff, and has to, like, hide out, which is convenient because he's invisible, although slightly inconvenient because it takes place in the dead of winter, and in order to be invisible, he has to, get completely naked. And there's scenes in this movie where he like, sits down in a chair while invisible, and I'm like, that man is naked. He just put his bare ass on his friend's chair. He broke into this man's home, and then rubbed his bare ass on his chair. Great going, man. some really good special effects in this movie. There are moments where it doesn't quite work, but there are a lot of scenes in this movie that do still really hold up. And even the ones that don't, you're kind of like, yeah, but it was the 30s, and in the 30s, this was really impressive. No one was doing anything like this in the 30s. So, really good special effects. I also think it's one of the best Universal horror movies. Uh, I probably enjoy Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein more, but I would put this at like third place. This is one of the best Universal horror movies. Although you'll notice I just have the individual DVD for Invisible Man instead of the Legacy collection that I have for nearly every other Universal monster. The reason for that is I've seen all of the other Invisible Man movies, and I am not interested in any of them. There's the Invisible Man's Revenge, which is really only noteworthy because Vincent Price plays the Invisible Man. It was one of Vincent Price's first roles. Then there's The Invisible Woman, which is A, not a sequel to The Invisible Man, and B, not a horror movie. It's a comedy film. It's basically a parody of The Invisible Man. But, like, in the 30s, when parody wasn't, like, spoof. Like, it's just the concept of someone turning invisible, and then they build a whole comedy around it. And then there's The Invisible Agent, where the Invisible Man joins World War II, which I think is a fascinating topic for a film, but it's not a good movie. There is one more Invisible Man movie, but we'll get to that one when we get to it. But yeah, that is a little weird that, like, one of the best Universal monster movies failed to spawn a single good sequel. Because Wolfman has a good sequel, Frankenstein has a good sequel, Dracula has a good sequel, there are no sequels to The Mummy, they're just remakes, but they're there. It was fun watching this movie about a guy running around in the snow on the same day that we got a bunch of snow here in Texas, so... Yeah, I'm like, oh look, he's running around in the snow. Look, I could go run around in the snow. Boy, this is fun. And then I slipped on ice and busted up my ribs and ruined my week. Claude Rains plays the Invisible Man. He's in a lot of Universal horror movies. And he's real good. I like him in this movie, although you don't actually see him at all. I mean, he's the Invisible Man. But I was a little surprised that it started with him invisible. Like, it just starts with him coming into this hotel and getting a room, and I expected at some point there was gonna be, like, a flashback to when he was developing the Invisible Man serum, but nope. No, it just starts with him invisible. The only time he becomes visible is at the very end, when, spoilers, he dies, and after he dies, his body becomes visible again. It's directed by James Whale, the same guy who directed the first two Frankenstein movies. So James Whale is just the one who was making the really good Universal monster movies. He was also one of Hollywood's first openly gay directors, possibly the first openly gay director. It was really weird that he was openly gay in, like, the 30s. He's just like, yep, I directed Frankenstein, I directed The Invisible Man, and I am gay. And that was not okay back then, so there's a reason he stopped making movies after a while. But, you know, he made a whole movie about a man getting naked in the 30s and got away with it. It's a movie about a man constantly stripping naked. That is something that happens multiple times in this movie. A man gets naked. And it passed in the 30s. Good work, James Wales. That's pretty poor gay undertones. There's way more gay undertones to, like, Bride of Frankenstein, but you know how it is. Invisible Man, great movie. I love it. So, last time I asked you what your favorite example of the Alan Quarterman effect is. Mine is Flash Gordon. Um, I don't know that I can think of any other, really good examples. And apparently you guys are with me on that one because, John Cleveland said, huge fan of Flash Gordon, and John August said, for the question, I'm gonna have to be basic and go with Flash Gordon. It really does hold up. Other than that, maybe John Carter, which didn't deserve to be a gigantic bomb. If you're a fan of John Carter, you might not like one of the upcoming episodes of Hollow Victories, but shh, that one's a surprise. I guess if we're still in the Star Wars vein, you could kind of argue Wrath of Khan did that too. Like, Star Wars was at least partially inspired by Star Trek, so when Star Wars is a big hit, all of a sudden they make another Star Trek movie. And it's the best Star Trek movie. I say that having only seen 2 Star Trek movies, but I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with me that Wrath of Khan is the best Star Trek movie. Except for, maybe a handful of nerds who are like, well, actually, it's, part 6. I don't know. I haven't watched the other Star Trek movies. I probably should. That'd be a good thing to watch. Alright, so, I think I've asked who your favorite Dracula was before, so tonight I'm gonna ask, who's your favorite Dr. Frankenstein? Not the monster, not the Frankenstein's monster, the doctor. Who's your favorite Dr. Frankenstein? For tonight's triple feature, and by tonight's triple feature I actually mean last Friday's triple feature, I already watched these because I'm going out of town this Friday. So, last Friday's triple feature, but pretend it's this Friday's triple feature, is just rounding out some of the Hammer horror franchises. We're going to start with Dracula AD 1972, because it's an installment that doesn't require you to have seen any of the other Hammer horror Dracula movies. Following that, we're going to pick up where we left off with the series with Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. And after that, we're going to watch Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. We're going to watch those for next time, and until then, I'm Matt. Have a nice day.